Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you are new here, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay updated with our latest tutorials. In today's video, we will be exploring another interesting design pattern, the proxy design pattern. If I am going too slow or too fast, just click the gear icon and set the playback speed that works best for you. The proxy design pattern, it's a structural design pattern. So it provides a placeholder for another object to control access to it. So in simple words, it's like having a middleman that represents the real object but adds an additional layer of control. Before performing operations on real object, this middleman can handle things like logging, access control, lazy initialization, and many more. So in this diagram, you can see we have a real object, so basically car object, and we have a proxy for this real object. And you can see here inside the proxy we have put additional check on driving license, right? So if client code is demanding for the car object, this proxy object will be checking if the client has driving license, only then it will be returning the real object and the client can perform the operations on real object, right? So next question is, why use proxy pattern? So the first point is lazy initialization, right? So when the real object resource is too heavy or like it's too expensive to load that object, so in that cases, if we want to load that object only if it is required, right? So in that case the proxy pattern helps, so we can control this lazy initialization at proxy level, right? Another thing is access control. So in this example we discussed, like client can access the car object only if he has driving license, right? So such kind of validations we can put inside the proxy object. And next thing is logging and monitoring. So proxies are often used to log requests to monitor the interactions with the real objects. So these are the scenarios where we can use the proxy pattern. So sometimes in distributed systems, a proxy can represent an object that is located remotely, right? For a better understanding on proxy pattern, so let's jump into the code and try to understand how we can implement proxy pattern in our projects. So let's create one interface car, and here we have one method void drive, and I will be creating the concrete class for this interface, that is a real car, that will be the implementation of car, and we need to override the method public void drive. In this class we have one string, private string model, and let me create the constructor to initialize this model. And in the drive method we are just printing driving this model, right? Now this is the real object, right? I'm just trying to replicate what we have discussed on the slide. And now here let me create another class that would be proxy car, and this is again the concrete class of car interface. Let me override the method drive, and in this car we have private string model and one additional property, private boolean has driving license, right? And one thing we will be declaring here is private real car reference of real car, right? So let's initialize the properties here. So let me create the constructor for model and driving license. And when we will be calling the drive method, so what we are going to do, first we will be validating the driving license. So if driving license is true and if real car equals to null, then we will be initializing the real car object. So let's call real car dot drive. Else, so let me throw new runtime exception. You are not eligible to drive car. So here in drive method you can see, so first we have added some validation. So if driving license is true, only then we will be creating the object of real car, and then we can call the real car dot drive method. Otherwise we will be throwing the runtime exception, you are not eligible to drive the car. And let's jump into the client code. For example, main. So public static void main. Here if I want to make the object car, we will not be accessing directly the real car, but we are accessing the proxy car. And for example, I am passing Honda Civic, right? And if I pass value for driving license is true, and here car dot drive. So if I run this, so driving Honda Civic, but in case if I am passing false for driving license, and in that case, so we will be getting the runtime exception, you are not eligible to drive car, right? So let's go through the code quickly. So first we created one interface car, and then we created two concrete classes for this interface. One is real car and one is proxy car. So real car is, we have one string model, we have initialized this through constructor, and finally we have drive method that came from the interface car, and we are just printing the statement. The proxy car, that is also implementation of car, but with some additional properties. So one is has driving license, and one is the real car reference, right? So in constructor, so we have just initialized the model and driving license. So model we will be passing while we will be creating the real car object, and driving license is just to put the additional layer of security on this object. And in drive method, we are just validating if the driving license is true, only then we will be creating the object of a real car, and then we can perform the further actions on that object. And if driving license is false, so in this particular requirement we have just thrown this runtime exception. So this is pretty simple design pattern. We can summarize. This pattern is useful for the scenarios where we want to add an extra layer of control around the real object, right? So we have seen in this example right away, whether you are optimizing resources, adding security, or working in the distributed system. So proxies can make your code more efficient and secure. So let's jump into the class diagram. So here we have this class diagram. So we created this interface car, and then we created two classes. Those are the implementation of car interface. So real car and proxy car, and proxy car has some additional properties just to put some additional validations. And finally client code is accessing the proxy car, and through the proxy car we will be creating the actual real car object as per the additional functionalities. And finally we will be performing the operations on a real car object. Thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe for more coding tutorials, and leave a comment below if you have any questions. Also check out my other videos on design patterns linked in this description. Until next time, keep coding. Thank you.